This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
The NBA is finally back off of its All-Star break with a whopper of a 9-game slate coming up for tonight, but also 10 games in the NHL. So who better to break down the NBA's return in a big night in the NHL than Tom Vecchio? Will get his thoughts on the NBA, talk some player props, talk some national TV games, and then talk NHL as well. And then I'll finish things up by talking NASCAR at Fontana at the end. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as mentioned by Tom Vecchio. Check him out on Twitter at DFS_Tom. Tom, the NBA is back. You are back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's a loaded slate. I got to start off by, giving a quick shout out to Austin Swaim. It's a tough act to follow after yesterday. He's winning FSWA for best football article. So he was on yesterday. I got some big shoes to fill today.
Yeah, check out Austin on Twitter at ASwim3. As you mentioned, the Fantasy Sports Writers Association's awards were announced last night, and Austin did win for Football Article of the Year. Our former boss / colleague, JJ Zachariason, won for Best Fantasy Football Publication for his draft guide as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say it's because of the Covering the Spread connection, just the good juju being spread around.
If you come on Covering the Spread, you'll win an award.
What's your, it doesn't have to be an award. What is the thing you want to win? Because apparently we can just be genies here, Tom. If I am wish casting for you, where are we going? Are we looking at a Rangers Cup, or what are we looking at?
I mean, if I could see anything win, it'd be Rangers. It'd be Rangers and Yankees 1 and 2. Rangers just because I wanted to see them win when they had Lundqvist. But the Yankees winning would make so many people mad because so many people hate the Yankees that that would bring me so much joy seeing so many people upset. That's
me. I'm in that camp as someone who grew up a Twins or am a Twins fan. That's me. So you could piss me off too, and we'll just all be happy here. Everyone happy except for me, unless Northwestern wins the NCAA tournament, which will never happen. I'll just be sitting here in my sorrow while everyone is sad. But like you said, congrats to Austin on the win in that last night. Congrats to JJ as well. We'll talk to Tom about the NBA, get you set for that, and also talk some NHL later on. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread. Maybe listening gets you the good juju as well to Covering the Spread. We'll go with that. Search for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe, and if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. These podcasts do go up on the FanDuel YouTube page as well. We'll have Austin Cass on tomorrow to talk about some EPL to get his read on that. And should be a good time as always. Ed Feng back with us next week as well off of his well-deserved vacation. Let's dive in now to the NBA though, Tom. And this is the first night out of the All-Star break. And we talked going in about how things can get a little bit wonky heading into the All-Star break. Some guys may get decreased minutes, whether that be because of the trade deadline before that or because of the All-Star break. But now a full week to rest up. So are those concerns gone, or how do we change things out of the break here from a betting perspective?
So most of those concerns are essentially gone for me because they've had this week off. Surprisingly, there's still players that are ruled out today that didn't play in the All-Star game. And, even with this week off, they're still going to be missing games. I think a lot of it can come down to what we see / hear from the teams, the players, the coaches, whatever it might be. For example, Warriors-Lakers tonight, actually 2 notes about 2 different players in that game. One would be LeBron James. There was an interview with him after the All-Star game saying that these are the most important 23 games of his career. And that if he's good to go every night, he'll be out there because we've seen him listed as questionable for, I want to say 75% of the games this year. And most of the time he ends up playing. It's not 100% of the time, but if we know that he's going to be playing, that we should have full confidence in, that the line's not going to move, if he's not going to get ruled out magically. So that would be one note. And the second one would be with Klay Thompson. Coming back from injuries over the past few seasons, throughout the first half of the year, he did not play on back-to-backs. And Steve Kerr said that Klay Thompson would be available moving forward on back-to-backs. There's still no Steph Curry. There's still no Andrew Wiggins tonight for the Warriors. So there's a lot of shots to go around for the Warriors. And if Klay Thompson's now going to be playing, we have to use that moving forward. So little notes like this could be really beneficial.
So for you, it's more so the minute details versus a broad perspective on things, where you take in what coaches are saying, take in what players are saying, and make that to like make micro changes versus, boosting all the guys who are in important playoff races, right?
Right. And I think that we're seeing the coaches and players say this because they're in these tight playoff races. Like the Warriors are not in a super comfortable position. The Lakers on the outside looking in. So if a coach on one of the lower teams in the league, the Pistons, the Magic, the Rockets, they say something like, I'm not going to be jumping out of my seat to like go run and on a player prop and bet on it. But
Right.
Teams that are in the hunt for players that will be seeing consistent minutes, I think is really, really important.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the games for tonight. We got a couple of national TV games here on the slate. We've got the Grizzlies and the Sixers and the Warriors and the Lakers. You just talked about Klay Thompson, talked about LeBron James, both those teams playing later on tonight. When you look at those two games specifically, Tom, anything stand out to you?
Yeah, I like DeAnthony Melton, player prop for the 76ers, over 8.5 points, sitting at minus 104. Seems like a really low number considering some of the outputs that he's had recently. When looking back at his game log, we're seeing 12, 13, 14, 17 points in some of these recent games. So 8.5 points is always great. It is happy to be going up against his former team, which we love to see. We also should note that the Grizzlies have taken a step back when it comes to their defensive rating, their net rating overall. They're missing Steven Adams, who's a very solid defensive center. He's been out for a couple of weeks now. So we look back, they were first in defensive rating, second in net rating. They're now 8th and then 23rd. So this is a pretty big gap. So I think there's upside for Melton because it's a good game environment. It's a pace-up spot for the 76ers. We're dealing with a solid over-under. 8.5 points is a pretty low number considering he's at 12, 13, 14, 17 in some of these recent games. And then they're missing a key part on defense, the Grizzlies, that is. So I not only like Melton, I think there's some clear upside for Joel Embiid tonight as well.
And Melton, the revenge game factor, that's always fun. Over 8.5 is minus 115 right now over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Embiid's point prop is 32.5. Would you be looking, like hypothetically, if you wanted to buy into Embiid, would you look at that, or would you be looking more at the PRA bets? What would be your preferred market for Embiid if you wanted to go there?
I think rebounds, if it's still at 11.5 and plus money, which is where I saw it before.
Yeah, it's at even money right now.
Even money. I think it was minus 105 before, but I think that's the spot because realistically, like Embiid's going to be the best player on the court tonight. That's what it comes down to. He's going to be the best player on the court. They're missing, again, Steven Adams, very solid defensive starting center. Jaren Jackson's going to be out there, which is no doubt a good matchup or a great player, great defensive. But still, Embiid going up against Xavier Tillman at the 5 spot specifically I will take Embiid 100 times out of 100.
Okay, so the rebound number, as mentioned, is 11.5, even money for Embiid there. Now, we do have the Lakers and the Warriors as well. Anything for you in that one, Tom, based around what we discussed before?
Yeah, that would be sticking with Klay Thompson, over 4.5 made threes. It was at minus 102 a little while ago. Like I said, no Steph Curry still. There's Wiggins is out tonight for, I think it's simply due to a personal reason, but still not going to be out there. We know Jordan Poole still plays a big role for the Warriors, but Klay Thompson is that secondary scorer. We see the Lakers bottom 10 in the league for the most 3 points allowed per game to their opponents. As a super high over-under, the Warriors and Lakers are number 1 and number 2 in the league when it comes to offensive pace. This is basically everything that we want. We're dealing with, 238 over-under, 239 over-under for this game? Super high.
Yeah.
So we're going to be seeing all the 238.5. We're seeing all the points, all the shots for Klay Thompson for what is realistically like a top 5, top 3 3-point shooter ever.
Yeah. 4.5 is now minus 104 at FanDuel Sportsbook, so very similar to what you had before. The made threes for Klay Thompson there. Jordan Poole is at 3.5 plus 112 on the over there, but you're thinking that Thompson kind of takes control here until Steph gets back?
Yeah, Jordan Poole's still a super consistent option, but Klay Thompson is the go-to option for them when push comes to shove, even with Poole out there.
Okay, so a couple things Tom is liking here in these 2 national TV games. DeAnthony Melton over 8.5 points, minus 115. Klay Thompson over 4.5 threes, minus 104, and potentially adding on the Joel Embiid rebound prop as well. But we've got 7 other games for tonight, Tom. So I'm taking the reins off, taking the restrictions away. I'm taking your minutes limit away as well. What are you seeing on the board elsewhere at FanDuel for tonight?
So Sacramento Kings hosting the Portland Trailblazers. super high over-under. This is just one of those games that has the feeling of what I call a classic late night Western Conference game where you turn it on, tune in, and all of a sudden it's 130 to 125. It's just, there's massive points. There's no defense. So going to specifically Domantas Sabonis over 40.5 PRA, it was sitting at minus 111. The Trailblazers are dead last in the league, allowing 26 points per game to opposing centers. They're allowing the 10th most assists per game to opposing centers. We know that the Trailblazers are without Yusuf Nurkic, their starting center, which means Drew Eubanks will be in there. Just a game environment thing, a usage thing for Sabonis, a clear mismatch, even when Yusuf Nurkic was there, and now he's out. Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, the point guard, he's in a great spot, but Sabonis specifically tonight is in a spot to eat. And if you've been playing NBA DFS, you've been betting on the NBA, we know how consistent Sabonis has been with these huge triple doubles where he's putting up 15, 15, and 15. Like, realistically, that's not too much of a surprise to see from him.
Yeah, 40.5 is minus 113 at FanDuel Sportsbook. That's a PRA bet for Domantas Sabonis. If you want to buy into that one. What else is seeing here in the NBA, Tom?
So I actually like the under on Cleveland and Denver. Two very solid defensive teams. 223 is the lowest on the board today. We have Jamal Murray questionable for the Nuggets. Aaron Gordon is already ruled out for the Nuggets. I don't see these teams coming out and flying up and down the court, especially after a week off. Like, how much rhythm and consistency are they going to have? Combined with the fact that they're two awesome defensive teams. Like, this is what we've seen from them. I will say the Jokic numbers tonight are really, really tough.
Yeah.
Because Jokic is awesome, but going up against Jared Allen and Evan Mobley is a very tough matchup. They're two of the best defensive big men in the league, hence why we see Cleveland as one of the best defensive rating teams in the league. So I don't love Jokic PRA tonight. I think either rebounds or triple-double would be the spot that I would go. And we've talked about this before, where Jokic getting a triple-double but still finishing under his PRA bet is something that we often see. And his triple-double tonight, I think, is still at plus 165. Yeah. So he could have a triple-double just because of the usage. Again, no Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray is questionable, all these sorts of things. But he still finishes under the PRA bet. Yeah. So I think it's on that main tab.
Oh, the main tab.
The triple-double bet would be on the main tab.
Mm-hmm.
It's a plus 165, 160?
Plus 50 right now.
Okay, so that's... If it got below 140, I probably wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
But plus 150, I still think is good. Again, we see these games where he has a triple-double, but he's not hitting the PRA. He's not getting up to these massive numbers. And I think that's realistic with this defensive matchup tonight, or a tough defensive matchup tonight.
Of the bets we've discussed so far across all the games, is the Jokic one the lowest priority one for you? Is that the one you're most wary of?
Right. Fading Jokic is always tough to do. We also have we're a lack of information when it comes to Jamal Murray.
Right.
So, if he plays, I think that would ultimately send the game over, or have a better chance if they have that true secondary score for the Nuggets out there. And then do I want to be going to Jokic triple-double or Jokic unders when it doesn't correlate with the game total, like all these sorts of things. So it's definitely the one that I'm prioritizing the least. I think Melton, Thompson, Sabonis are all much better than that.
Referring to the PRA bet for Jokic, his PRA is 46.5. Under is even money right now on Jokic for that one. Okay, that wraps up the NBA, but we got a lot of games on the NHL side as well. So let's shift over and talk about the NHL for tonight. It is a 10-game slate for tonight, Tom. And let's start things off by talking about the more traditional markets, money lines, et cetera, et cetera. When you look at these 10 games for tonight in the NHL, where are you seeing value there?
Starting off, going to the Boston Bruins, the best team in the league. They are playing at the Seattle Kraken, and the Bruins in reg, Bruins in 60 minutes, is minus 111. That's an awesome line for a team that is literally tying and setting records. They are on a historic pace this year for points and wins, all these sorts of things. We're getting a team to win at near even money in 60 minutes is absolutely phenomenal. And I do think that this is like as clear of a matchup as we can get. Seattle, they were super hot at one point early in the year. They won an 8-game road trip. They won every single game. they've kind of regressed since then. And they're dealing with a few injuries here or there. Boston coming off a full rest. Yes, it's an away game, but it's not like a back-to-back or anything. It's the first game of their road trip. So they should be good to go. Line up fully healthy. Jake DeBrusk is back a couple games ago, make their top 9 even stronger, which I didn't know you could do for the best team in the league. But they're ready to go.
Yeah. That number, as you mentioned, for the Bruins to win regulation is -111. So you go to FanDuel, click on the regular market, 60-minute money line with no push, and the -111 is the mark there for the Bruins. Anything else you like from a traditional bet perspective in the NHL?
I do. I like the Rangers -102 in reg. Again, another regulation bet. A team coming off of 2 losses. I want to say 2 kind of tough losses, especially the one the other night against the Winnipeg Jets, where they had 51 shots on goal and scored only a single goal. So a huge performance from Connor Hellebuyck the other night for the Jets. 51 shots is unbelievable, and only scoring 1 is simply insane. They're just the better team compared to the Detroit Red Wings. This is a spot for them to rebound. They should have Igor Shesterkin in net tonight. All very, very straightforward stuff. Good teams who are coming off of losses at really good odds is the spot, especially late in the season, for the NHL that I would like to attack. And the example I use is, Tuesday night? There were 9 games. 5 of the 9 games had money lines that were at 315 or higher, -315 or higher. We're seeing this discrepancy grow because all of these teams are so good, and there's like a race to the bottom this year to get this top prospect, get the number 1 overall pick with Connor Bedard. And it's so tough to find value on a nightly basis that we have to attack good teams when we have good numbers.
Right. And the number you mentioned for the Rangers is -102. Once again, the 60-minute money line with no push there, -102 for the Rangers to win in those first 60 minutes. So betting on the Bruins, betting on the Rangers, probably something that's been pretty good to bettors so far this year as far as the traditional markets go. What about player props, Tom? We look at those for tonight. Where are you seeing value for there?
So as of now, I'm not seeing any player props posted on the FanDuel Sportsbook. I would say, examine things across the industry where you can find value. The spots that I will just objectively like tonight, obviously depending on odds, all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
But Elias Pettersson on the Vancouver Canucks at St. Louis, he is, been by far their best player. The Canucks traded away Bo Horvat, so he's clearly number 1 now. High shot volume, first forward line, first power play, all these sorts of things. Blues are terrible on defense, and the Canucks are also terrible on defense, as the 7 over-under would indicate, not just 6 or 6.5, a 7 over-under is certainly very high. So this game does have a high scoring expectation, and we're going to be taking a top-line player who does have a high shot volume, who could pour in multiple points every single night. So I assume his line's going to be, it's either going to be 2.5, his shot volume, his shot prop is going to be 2.5, but it'll be juiced, or it'll be 3.5 and probably +110, somewhere around there. Yeah. I would prefer it to be +3.5 and +110 rather than -160 at 2.5.
Right. Let's say they do the 2.5 at -160, hypothetically. Would you still take that? Or would you just stick with the money line and regulation bets you got elsewhere?
I would probably look to Pettersson for over 1.5 points at that point, where, again, it goes along the lines of a game that has a high scoring expectation with the role that he plays. He could pick up 3 assists and have 1 shot on, only 1 shot on goal, obviously. Anything can happen. But that's also a realistic outcome based on this matchup against the Blues. Yeah. So -130 or so is generally the line that I cut things off, as if it's 2.5 shot prop.
Sure.
Depending on the player, depending on the matchup, but I don't like going past that.
Yeah. So as you're listening here, go to FanDuel Sportsbook, check out the Canucks versus Blues tab and see what the markets are on Elias Pettersson. Tom's checking out the shot prop. If it's 2.5, -130 or so in there. If you can get +110 or so on 3.5, sounds like that's where Tom would bite there. But if you can't get that, you want to look at the 1.5 points prop. What's the point of where you back off on over 1.5 points for Pettersson for tonight?
I think it would almost certainly be at even money every time.
Yeah.
So there's no, if it was +100, I wouldn't love it. But if it was anything plus, 120, 125, anything higher, I would be all over that, because that's what it should be. He's, just over a point per game or right around there. So getting him at +1.5 Over +1 or 1.5 at plus money at plus 120, 140 would be awesome.
Okay. Well, that's what Tom's seeing right now across both the NBA and the NHL. So, Tom, I got to say thanks to you for swinging by for today, breaking down your thoughts on both of those. Enjoy the NBA coming out of the All-Star break. Enjoy the NHL. A loaded slate for tonight as well. And we'll have you back on here again soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right, check out Tom on Twitter at DFS_Tom. You can find his work over at numberFire.com as well. The Daily ISO is back with the NBA coming off the All-Star break. Find that by searching for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Before we close up for today, we're going to go through some NASCAR at Fontana to break down what my numbers are showing value on over there. But first, a reminder, the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777. or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In Kansas and Wyoming, 1-800-522-4700. And in Kansas, ksgamblinghelp.com. Louisiana is 1-877-770-STOP. In Maryland, mdgamblinghelp.org. In New York, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. And in West Virginia, go to 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Let's dig in here now to NASCAR at Fontana. And from an overall perspective, I'm going to be a little bit lighter in the betting card for this week than what I was last week for the Daytona 500. And there are a couple reasons for that. The first one is rain is expected this weekend. So we want to practice our qualifying data at a track where practice data can tell us quite a bit, not single lap runs, but multi-lap runs, given how much tire degradation there is here. They can give us a lot of hints on who will be good. Second, this is the first race where speed truly matters. We're seeing the new Ford nose and the new Toyota nose. I think Fords could outperform expectations this week, but I don't know that for sure. And I've got some levers I can pull in my model to account for extra variance on them, but I still think that I might be too low on them despite those levers being in place. If we got practice data, I could get a read on that and decide, okay, yeah, Fords are the same as they were last year, not as good at the high-speed track, stuff like that. Or, yeah, they definitely made gains. I'm not going to know that with no practice and no qualifying, most likely. So we likely won't get that. So I'm going to scale back this week a little bit, keep things a little bit more light. I want to get a read on the Ford speed primarily first and go from there. So just a few spots where I'm seeing value and willing to bet it. One of them is a bet that has shortened, but is still a value for me based on my numbers. And that's Eric Jones to win at 28-1 at FanDuel. You can still get 30-1 elsewhere. I believe one of the books does 30. I would still take 28-1 if that's the best number you can possibly get. My numbers love Jones this week. He had a 4th place average running position in this race last year. So good track history in that regard. He had very good speed at Michigan and Pocono. The other high-speed tracks, and they're not similar tracks to Fontana. They're both big, but they're not similar. But I want spots where speed matters a lot because it does in Fontana, does those tracks. Jones didn't get great finishes at those, but he was very, very fast in practice. Had some issues in qualifying in those, but he was really fast. Jones won Darlington. That's another track that, like Fontana, features tons of tire fall off. So when you combine all that together, I have Jones at 5.5% to win, up from 3.4% implied at 28-1, which means I'm pretty far off from the market, which is never a comfortable thing. The market tends to be right more often than not. So I have wiggle room there to be too low on Ford and still be in on Jones. So shop around for the best price on Jones, see what you can get. I'm also showing value on his podium odds at 8-1 if you want extra wiggle room. But, I think that he is a good value for this week. If you're not as high on Jones, skeptical of Legacy Motor Club, whatever it may be, I am showing value on William Byron, 5-1 to podium. His outright odds shortened to the point where he's no longer valued there, but his podium odds didn't shorten as much. So 5-1 for Byron to podium. I think it's a good bet. I just don't want to add more Chevy exposure in case Ford and Toyota do improve. So I want to be a bit wary there. That's why I'm going with just Jones. Going with Jones and Byron. Both those guys are Chevys, could get downgraded here. So I'll stick with Jones, but Byron is an option too if you want to go with that route instead. The uncertainty around manufacturers actually plays into another bet that I like for this week, and that's on a manufacturer to win. Ford is plus 220. I can't get there, even acknowledging that I may be too low on them, but I can get to Toyota at 2-1. I've got Toyota's win odds right now at 37%. Their implied odds are 33.3%, so a decent little gap there. At FanDuel's outright odds for the Toyota drivers, there's 6 of them. I am either above the implied odds in my simulations or right in line with 4 of the 6 drivers, and nobody is massively overvalued. Like we have a couple guys at Chevy that I'm a lot lower on. That's not the case for any of the Toyotas. I can lump them together and benefit if any of them win. 2-1 is not a bad number there. Now, I've been talking about the Fords getting new noses, but Toyota did too. Denny Hamlin said they got behind the 8 ball last year with some late changes to, they were trying to make the cars cooler for drivers, and they made some changes. And he said that put Toyota pretty far behind. They got changes, Ford got changes, Chevy did too. But the expectation is that the biggest benefactors will be Chevy or Ford and Toyota. And look at the Toyotas last year, even with those changes, they had massive speed in both Michigan and Pocono. They crossed the finish line first in Pocono before Hamlin and Kyle Busch were disqualified. I think they had the best cars in Michigan. Bubba Wallace maybe should have won that race. Hamlin was very fast in that race too. So big speed there. They struggled in Fontana last year because of overheating issues, an issue they fixed very quickly. And I think that books may underestimate them as a result of that too. So I am very okay taking advantage of those issues and betting Toyota to win this race. So Toyota to me to win at 2-1 is the second best bet behind Eric Jones to win at 28-1. I also do like some head-to-heads for Toyotas over Chevys. Those are Christopher Bell over Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin over Chase Elliott, both of which are minus 118. I like them a lot more when Bell was minus 108 and Hamlin was minus 112. So I'd rather take the manufacturer bet now with the current odds and go with Toyota at 2-1 to win this race. There are no top 10 odds right now at FanDuel, but I do like Daniel Suarez plus 170. You can get that at Bet Rivers. The implied odds at plus 170 are 37%, whereas I have Suarez at 44%. He's up there because he was at least in contention at similar tracks last year. Not contention to win necessarily, but contention for a top 10. He did finish inside the top 10 in 4 of those 7 races, and he led 30 plus laps in 2 of the races where he did not finish inside the top 10. Suarez I do see some value in him to win in my model, but again, he's a Chevy, so I don't want to overestimate him there. So, and I think that my model may overestimate its upside. At plus 170 finish top 10, though, the upside not as big of an issue. So I do like Suarez plus 170 finish top 10 if you can get that. I like Jones at 28-1 or longer if you can get that. And then Toyota to win 2-1. Those are my 3 favorite bets in the Cup Series for Fontana. On the Xfinity side, I'm showing value on one team specifically, and I say one team because it's literally every driver on that one specific team, and that's Kaulig Racing. For those who may not know, Kaulig Racing for this race is Austin Dillon. In the Xfinity Series, it's Austin Dillon, Daniel Hemrick, and Chandler Smith. I'm showing value at FanDuel's odds, but you can get them all at longer odds at William Hill books. So if you have access to like Caesars or something like that, you can get pretty good numbers on all these guys. I have Dillon's win odds at 8.3%. I have Daniel Hemrick at 6.4% and Chandler Smith at 4.2%. All of those guys are above their FanDuel implied odds. And again, you can get them longer elsewhere. I'm guessing this is happening because Kaulig had a weird lull last year. In the late spring, early summer, they were short on some sort of parts. I remember that they were talking to AJ Allmendinger when he was with this team and saying, like, we don't have speed. You know why? We'll get better later on. I don't know what happened, but they did get better. If it was the part thing, if it was something else. But in the first half of the season, Colleague Racing's aggregate average running position on the fast track, so mile and a half or longer, non-super speedways, was 14.1. In the second half, it was 10.0. Really good number. Now, it could be variance because even though it's a 3-car team and it was a decent sample, there's always variance with wrecks and stuff like that. They had a couple wrecks. I think Landon Castle wrecked in Fontana, and then they had a wreck somewhere else too. But it could also be explained by, the parts issue that I was talking about before. That could be why they're undervalued in this market based on my numbers. Dylan at FanDuel is 15-1. Hemrick is 20. Chandler Smith is 50-1. But at other places, you can Dylan up to 17-1, Hemrick at 28, and Smith at 75. So even if FanDuel is the best you've got, I would take it personally. If you can get access to longer numbers, as always, take those instead. So it's a situation where I'm pretty far off in the market on all three of these guys, and I could be wrong, but I also think there is a reason to think the books may be too low on Colleague specifically. So to me, that says I can feel okay betting on the Colleague guys. So far, I've taken outrights on Dylan, Hemrick, and Smith. I've taken group bets on Hemrick and Smith, and then top 5 bets on Hemrick and Smith as well. I've not done a non-outright on Dylan yet, but that's what I'm looking there. Dylan might drop out of this race, given that the Xfinity Series race would be after the Cup race on Sunday. That could be a thing. So I prefer probably Hemrick and Smith as far as safety goes. You get a refund if he were to drop out with there being no qualifying. So that would help for sure. But I think for me, Hemrick and Smith, Chandler Smith specifically, the best values, and Austin Dillon a good value if we get confirmation that he will race for sure on Sunday as well. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. We'll be back once again tomorrow talking some EPL with Austin Cass, getting his read on big match on Sunday, but also the full Saturday slate as well. We'll talk with Austin about that to get his read on this weekend's events in the EPL. To get that as it is posted, make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on your podcast platform of choice, but also over on the FanDuel YouTube page if you want to watch them there. Big thank you to our previous guest, Tom Vecchio. Check him out on Twitter at DFS_Tom. Find his work at numberFire and his NBA DFS thoughts over on the Daily ISO podcast feed. I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your bets for tonight. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down some soccer. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.